Your very nature is self. God and self are not different. The realized soul, or jnani, calls it Atma, and the devotee calls it God. It is the self alone that is omnipresent, and you are that. When there is nothing apart from you, how can anything superior or inferior to you exist?
Self is knowledge, existence, and bliss, or Satchidananda Swarupa. Self embodies happiness, peace, light, truth, bliss, and knowledge.
Your very nature is the self. Your very nature is God. Your nature itself is the Kundalini Shakti and the kingdom of heaven proclaimed by Christ. There is no other beauty or truth equivalent to self.
Once you taste the bliss of self, even if your Ishta Deva or the personal God you love most stands before you, you will not desire to look at him. Such is the glory of the self.
The self that is shining within your heart is the only truth. There is no God greater than truth. There is no religion greater than truth. There is no nation greater than truth.
The self has the power to enslave your senses, mind, and also your destiny. But are you wholeheartedly desiring self-knowledge? The self reveals itself only when you desire it, isn't it?
I am is self. The I thought is the ego. Aham Brahmasmi implies I am that, or I am the embodiment of Brahman. I, referred to here, is not the limited I you have in experience. I, here, indicates the self.
The Adi Guru, or first Guru Dakshinamurti, himself couldn't explain the nature of self in words and remained silent. Dakshinamurti equals Dakshina, or right side, plus a Murti, or formless. Therefore, Dakshinamurti implies the formless one who resides within the heart on the right side of the body. So, he refers to the self.
The self shining within us is much brighter than millions of suns put together. It is not visible to these flesh-made eyes. One needs goodness, patience, humility, and faith to realize the self.
As the clouds hide the sun, the self is covered by the cloud of ego. The self is revealed only to those who kill their ego when their body is very much alive.
The self alone is the true Arunachala. The self is deathless, hence, everybody craves immortality. The self is ever free, therefore, everyone desires freedom. The very nature of the self is love. Therefore, every man loves himself. The very nature of the self is happiness. So, everybody thrives on joy. The self is sorrowless. Hence, no one desires sorrow.
Even though the electric current is invisible, can we doubt its existence? Similarly, do not doubt the existence of the self, though it is not visible. The electric bulb glows when attached to an electric wire. Similarly, incarnations like Rama and Krishna took birth only to manifest the power of self. However, please don't limit the self to their bodies.
Attaching a 100-watt bulb to an electric wire will only emit light according to the 100-watt bulb. Similarly, if we attach a 1000-watt bulb to the wire, it will only emit light according to the 1000-watt bulb. Where is the limitation to the power of wire? Similarly, the strength of the self is infinite, and it has no boundaries.
Prarabdha karma or destiny is limited to body and mind and is not related to the self. The sun is the witness to each of our activities. When our actions don't affect the physical sun, how can it touch the non-physical sun, or the Supreme Self, from which the physical sun derives its light?
Except for the self, everything else is gross. We may yearn for self-realization, but the desire of the self to reveal itself to us is much greater than our yearning.
The self doesn't need any physical body, but the ego needs a body. Self is revealed only to those who lead their lives carefully and humbly.
My dear friends, instead of traveling hundreds of miles externally, if you travel at least an inch toward your heart, you will understand the glory of the self.
If you love the truth, then it will be revealed. You are still ignorant even if you study many scriptures without realizing the self, and a self-realized soul need not bother with the study of scriptures.
Self is not revealed to them who is neither a jnani nor a tyagi. It is only the impurities and sins within your heart that are obstructing your path toward the self. Even one evil tendency prevents you from realizing the self.
Self is not revealed to the weak and lazy people. Enjoying the sensual pleasures since several births, you have traveled far away from the self. You must travel back the same distance you traveled away from the self through sadhana or spiritual effort for the self to reveal.
Self is invisible. It reveals to you only when you are purified. You cannot eliminate the sensual pleasures and transcend nature until you taste the bliss of the self.
Self is revealed only to a seeker of truth. Self is truth, and the body is gross. The body works only with the energy of the self. You must utilize 100% of your energy for the self to reveal.
By having the self as your sole goal, 1. You will find happiness in this world and, after death, in the other higher worlds. 2. You will be able to bear your destiny happily. 3. Your needs will be satisfied. 4. Finally, you will experience the self.
Happiness lies in contentment, but no one can become contented until the self is realized.
Whatever form you adore, whatever name you chant, even after 1,000,000 years, you ultimately need to attain the state of Brahman or self-realization. Then why don't you aim for it in this birth and today itself?
By repeatedly contemplating your personal God or Ishtadeva, your mind gets concentrated, and all the thoughts, including the present thought of personal God, disappear, by which self reveals unto you.
My dear friends, many people crave health, but is there anyone who craves self-realization? If you spend at least half of the tears you spend on your family for self-realization, you will achieve self-realization.
If the self is divisible into 4 portions, all the worlds visible to us constitute only a portion. Relative knowledge has at least some ignorance embedded in it. Where there is ignorance, change is inevitable. The self alone is perpetual. It is pure jnana.
Needs are different from desires. The self is revealed to those who earn according to their needs and spend their remaining time in spiritual efforts to attain the self. Don't you know whether you are living to fulfill your needs or desires? Even if you don't know, is it unknown to the indwelling self?
How can you achieve self-realization if you are proud of your learning or money? To bring an item that fell into a pool, you hold your breath, close your mouth, and get into the water. Then, to attain the self within the depths of your heart, don't you need to regulate your breath, mind, words, and senses before you enter your heart?
Your body is superior to your clothes, your senses are superior to your body. Your mind is superior to your senses. Your discrimination or thinking faculty is superior to your mind, and the self is much superior to your discrimination or thinking faculty. Isn't it true?
Faith and reason are equally important in knowing the truth. But how many of you have faith in the self? People with Rajas and Tamas can never hear about the self, and, thereby, can never be peaceful. Isn't it true that Shraddha or attentiveness in grasping is obtained only through Shravana or hearing about the self? How can one attain faith without Shraddha?
Whether it is Krishna in Gita or the rishis in the Vedas, they always say that the self exists within your heart, but never proclaim that it exists within books. But being habituated to an extroverted vision, we constantly search for the self in the books, rather than in the heart. Books bestow us with only scholarship rather than self-realization.
The Lord said in the Gita, I shine as the self within your heart. Dive deep and search within. Only then will I be revealed. We came into this world only to attain the experience of God. We should never forget the purpose of our arrival.
The incarnation of Ramana came onto this earth only to introvert humanity, habituated to extroversion since time immemorial, toward the self.
As a screen supports the movie images projected on it, the self supports the entire creation.
Moderation in food, speech, and sleep are the best means to attain the self.
Sri Ramana asked, Self is considered the witness of all our actions. But when nothing is apart from the self, for whom does it stand as a witness? You cannot understand the beauties of self, until and unless you transcend nature, the gods, the worlds, and the tendencies.
The self is beyond reasoning, but not against it. This is because today's so-called advanced science has not yet determined how the 5 elements, the basis of our nature, have been formulated. Then how can we expect it to discover the self?
नित्योऽहं निरवध्योऽहम् निराकारोऽहमच्युतः परमानन्दरूपोऽहम् अहमेवाहमव्ययः